Why are so many people getting cancer younger and younger? This cancer doctor has some different ideas about what is causing cancer, so stay tuned. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I have an interview with Dr. Erin Connealy, who is a cancer doctor. And like I mentioned in the introduction, she has some different ideas about what actually causes cancer. The reason I wanted to bring her onto the show is that she talks about things that I've never heard another cancer doctor even mention, even though these things are absolutely monumental in causing cancer. A lot of cancer doctors, as she mentions in this episode, say that what you eat doesn't matter, right? That you could just eat Oreos, milkshakes, and you will have no problem with cancer or recovering from cancer. But Dr. Connealy likes to look at the person as a whole, look at their lifestyle, look at their history, and we talk about all of that and so much more in this episode. There are a ton of timestamps linked down in the show notes for you. If you want to check through the episode of the different things we talk about, there is so much packed into this episode. And I ask you if you would please share this episode out with anybody who needs to hear this information. I have become so passionate about just spreading the word about things like this, about cancer prevention, about health optimization, instead of us getting to a place where we are already sick and have to fix things. So again, please share this episode out with anybody who you think could be helped. Today's episode is brought to you by my two sponsors. The first one is going to be Optimal Carnivore. This is their new product, Brain Nourish. Love it. It is grass-fed beef brain with lion's mane. Really great to help those neurotransmitters. And this is really my go-to source when I don't feel like eating organ meats. You can use my code carnivore uppercase Y to save 10% on any of their products. I will put the link down in the show notes for you guys. And the second sponsor of today's episode is going to be Upgraded Formulas. This is my go-to when I want to make sure that I'm not over supplementing something like my minerals. I use their hair tissue mineral analysis with a consultation to know, am I doing too much supplementation, right? Because that's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to waste money and we don't want to throw our bodies out of balance by adding things that we do not need. So you can use my code YOGI12 or YOGI to save on anything at the Upgraded Formulas website. Also love their magnesium. I'm glad I have not been deficient in that because I do really love that product. And again, use my code to save over on their website. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and I will talk with you again very soon. Bye. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here today and especially excited to welcome Dr. Connealy. We are going to talk about lots of things having to do with cancer. And if you don't follow her on social media, I'm going to make sure to put her information in the show notes for you. But thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, it's great to be here with you, Sarah.
Yeah. And I said before I turned the camera, I'm just so excited to chat with you today because I feel that you really do a good job of talking about a lot of things that most doctors that deal with and treat cancer never even mention. So you just have some tremendous work and information that you put out to the public. I really appreciate that.
Well, I want everyone to know what I know and what I've learned over the last many, many years that, has come about, when I finished medical school, oh gosh, 30 some, probably 37, 38 years ago. And, what we learn in medical school is great and wonderful and absolute necessity. And then when you're in training, you learn how to take care of very sick patients because you're working in a hospital. But then we need to practice more updated medicine and new things come out and new, lots of things change. And unfortunately, in our industry, people say, oh, I have this great thought I'm thinking about. And then everybody goes, no, that you're crazy. That can't be. And I always use the example in lots of talks, and I use it with patients, is that Dr. Semmelweis, he used to deliver babies at the hospital, and there was such a high degree of infection. So he said, I have a great idea. Why don't everybody wash their hands before we deliver a baby? And everyone thought he was crazy. Literally, his wife was a physician. The hospital board said, that is the craziest idea I've ever heard of. And then that took 100 years to be implemented. But not only do we wash our hands in medicine, when you get ready to go into an operating room, you scrub your hands with betadine all the way up to your elbows for 15 to 20 minutes. Right. So the notion may be crazy, but we all need to say, well, why wouldn't we just try it and see? Like, washing hands, you think, especially in the last couple of years, everything is about washing your hands, right?
Right.
But something so simple, as washing your hands was such, an ostracized idea. And so we need to all be cooperative and collaborative and say, well, let's look at this instead of being against, our fellow man who may have a great idea. And there's just so much reaction to something that may be of great benefit to humanity. And so, and look at the smoking industry. Smoking was advertised in medical journals, okay, as all good and okay. And then 50 years later, right? So, and I'm, unfortunately a victim, I'm number 3 of 6 children. And, my mother started bleeding. They go, oh, we have this medication that will stop the bleeding and prevent the loss of your baby. That was called diethylstilbestrol. And that was used in the 50s. And then when I'm 16 years old, my parents receive a letter that drug caused cancer in both male and female offspring, hormone problems, infertility, anatomical problems, etc. Depending on when you were given it, it would affect the in utero baby. And so, now do they use that drug? No, but it was used for 42 years, knowing it was carcinogenic. Wow. And so it's all of these things, and so we need to kind of apply the precautionary principle to things that may have irreversible effects on humanity. And we need to create the best, environment and teach our patients how to create the best environment for yourself, especially we're in 2022 and we are, if we're doing so well, why is everybody ill?
Right.
And I don't want to say everybody's ill, they're not, but about 60% of the population is suffering from chronic illness. If you look at children today, a couple of weeks ago, I got an invitation to go to a conference on children. And it was 1 in 40 has autism, 1 in 5 has ADD, it was all these statistics. And I'm like, what? How is this okay? Why is this normalized?
Right.
This is okay. I know the conference has great intentions and they do want to help people, but we should all be in alarm and say, wait, we need to literally look at this and say, how do we prevent this? Not treat it. How do we prevent this situation? And being a mother myself, that was something I was very mindful and conscious of, rearing my children and how not to use antibiotics and how to create this great atmosphere, how to get them outside and how to not use technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what's so disturbing to me is we talk about the treatment of everything, but we should be talking about human optimization from the time that the mother wants to have a baby.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then we need to talk about human optimization when we see a patient is how do we create this perfect homeostasis and perfect optimal level of a patient to be as best as the best version of themselves. And so that's where medicine needs to get, okay? Because I know the human being is this miracle that we all get to, live with every day. But let's steward the miracle, and let's learn how to steward the miracle that we get to live in every day.
Agree, and it's so crazy you bring that up about pregnancy and children. I have a 14-year-old with autism, and I'm actually 23 weeks pregnant right now. He's kicking away as I'm talking.
Oh, congratulations.
But it took me, and thank you, it took me many years to, first of all, kind of try to understand what happened to my daughter that got us in this situation. And then a lot of courage to say, I want to have another child. I have to educate myself on all the products we use, all the food that we eat, the electronics in the house. Do we turn off the Wi-Fi, get rid of the cell phones, all these things? Am I grounding? Am I getting sunlight? Are my circadian rhythms intact? For me to actually get pregnant and feel like I can do this, I'm going to have another child, a healthy child. And so a lot of what I teach and a lot of my platform, no one's really known that I've been on this fertility journey for the last couple of years of really wanting to bring a healthy child into the world. But they've seen all my content shift away from only talking about nutrition to talking about a lot of the things that you speak about, when it comes to our overall health. And like you said, human optimization, we have to take all of these things into account and, understand. I've heard you say on other podcasts, the rate, isn't it like 1 in 2 now of people getting cancer? Is that what I've heard you say? Or
that is correct. And so it's like, we have a cancer institution here called City of Hope, and they're moving in they have multiple locations, but they're building a big one in Irvine. And because they've studied that there's going to be by 2030 a 30% increase in cancer. So if it's already 1 and 2, so I'm like, wow, so why wouldn't they go, wow, we need to prevent, we need to learn everything about how to prevent, we need to have early detection, we need to really scope the world over, but that won't feed the $1 billion facility either.
Right.
So, and I'm all into growth and development of business, and I want all the businesses to survive and thrive. But I want it also to serve humanity and serve the world and the community that we live in. Because if we're best, then our family's best, our friends are best, and the community is best at a whole, and it can serve the excellence of humanity, right?
Yep.
And so, because, last night I was doing a procedure, I have an endo laser, and I was doing a procedure on my hip. It's a procedure where you use light to activate healing. So I was talking to my young nurse who works here, and he does many different modalities here. And he's like, oh, Dr. Connealy, I come in here every day and I'm like, oh God, this would be my worst nightmare to get cancer. And I said, well, and he's very health minded. He didn't come in like that. But since he's been working here, he's like, oh my gosh, the privilege that I get to work here is like, I am just so thankful that I get to know all this now. And he has 2 young children, so he's worried about his young children. And he was saying like, that would be my worst. He goes, I see the patients that we get to serve every day. And it's like, we got to do everything to prevent this and not see people in their worst stages. And so here's a 32-year-old thinking like that. So when you get to see it up front, you it's up close and personal, right? And so that's why as physicians, medicine is a reactive process, as opposed to, okay, the patient comes in, let me look at how they live, let me look at their lifestyle, let me look at, let me look at everything, and don't think that a 29-year-old is okay.
Yeah.
Confirm they're okay.
Yeah.
Verify they're okay. And that doesn't really take a lot, And
Yeah.
so and I love it that we have all these young people. Like, I've done many podcasts with young people, and they are just like so dedicated and committed to this information. So I know change is on the way, and we're going to transform the landscape of medicine. But we all have to work together and just keep sharing the message to 8 billion people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd really would love to hear what you think, as far as food goes, it could be contributing to cancer. Do you think that, I know that that's probably just a small piece of things, but I'd love to start there and just hear your thoughts on how our food supply, how that could be contributing to cancer at younger and higher rates.
Right. Well, I think, food is information for our cells to take care of us, right? And so if you eat dead, devitalized food and chemicalized food, that's going to be a problem. They found chemicals in adult blood, breast milk, placenta. So obviously it's in the air, the water, and the food supply. All of those different exposures we have to take into account. So that means our food needs to be carefully thought out. And unfortunately, most people eat dead, devitalized, inactive food, right? Right. So because like you eat cereal in the morning, so that doesn't provide anything. There's chemicals in there. And one of the worst chemicals now is glyphosate, which is the weed killer run by Monsanto, who's really bought out by Bayer. That glyphosate is almost in everybody's, all the studies show it's in probably 95 to 98% of humanity. And in the last 10 years, I think it's increased 50% in humanity. Wow. We know there is a link to different cancers and growing, is what I read. And so, but I tell people that's just one chemical. If we look what's in our bodies, there's hundreds of chemicals. So no one, I don't care how brilliant you are or how Nobel Prize or what kind of biochemistry degree or any kind of the synergistic potential of all these chemicals, what is it going to do to you, right? So no one has a crystal ball and saying, oh yeah, we know what's going on every nanosecond in the body. So we need to know where we're getting our food, what is in it. We need to do a forensic analysis, I hate to say, as best you can, and you can do that with all the information that's available now, all right? And eat foods that have, active nutritional information to turn on and off our cells that take care of us every day.
Yeah.
And so, people, long time ago, I grew up in Texas. And so we had a farm. And so we had our own cows and eggs and chicken. We had chickens and everything. And it was our grandparents' farm, very little, farm, but that's how, it was. And so I remember my mom would, order a cow because there was 6 kids.
Yeah. Very economical.
Right. And then we drank raw milk and because we had milkmans in those days.
Yeah. Actually, we did when I was growing up too. I'll be 43 on Saturday. So we had that for a little bit when I was growing up.
Yeah. So that was delivered. And so, I know it's available now in like 43 states, which is great.
Yes.
So we need to look how people have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were hunter-gatherers, right? So they hunted their food and gathered the berries, the vegetables in season and everything. And so, we, that's what we need to do. But now
Yes.
you have all these companies, they're food processed, and there are some very innovative companies though that make really good food today, like really good, I don't want to say processed foods, but they make unique products that are excellent for you. So I think we need to look at brands that are, making foods that are ethical and they care about the end product, which is you ingesting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so but most of the grocery store, let's face it, is probably not that good for you. All right. And that's a whole topic in and of itself. So, you need to eat live foods. If you're an energy being, so if you want to have energy, you have to eat energy. All right. And so a cookie is not going to have energy. All right. A croissant, as much as I really love croissants, they don't have energy. And so you need to eat foods that, have valuable content. And so, what we eat, and we need to be conscious and mindful of what we're putting in our body. And people have lots of misconceptions about food. They think that eating liver, like people look at you, tell people to eat liver and you're like, what? Okay. Now, I grew up on liver, and my mother made pate with a grinder clamped to the table. So liver is like one of the most nutritious foods you can eat, and it's real. It's real, and it has phosphatidylcholine, which makes the membranes of your body good. It has, if you want to feel good, you eat 3 tablespoons of raw liver, and voila, you're going to be feeling great. So people have been eating, organ meats and all that for many, many years. Okay. And so we've gotten away and kind of mechanized the nutrition and made it convenient. But convenient, you can eat well conveniently. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
And so, so people just need to really take inventory of what they're doing every day. We're talking about food, but we need to take inventory of our entire 24-hour existence, from our sleep, our water. Are we buying plastic water bottles? Are we, where are we getting our water? You have to have a water purification system today. You have to, because the pharmacology in the water, all the chemicals in the water. I mean, it's heavy metals in the water. I mean, it's an article written in Popular Science years ago. I read that. I was like, wow. So it's talked about a lot. So you've got to have, and then if you're drinking out of plastic, you're just drinking thousands of chemicals, plus you're destroying the environment because that's not biodegradable. And so, you have to eliminate plastic out of your life, because it's, a lot of people say it's like the #1 pollutant. We do environmental pollutant panel, urine testing, but I always tell people, like, why would I waste money to do that? Because I already know you're going to have chemicals. Okay. Like, because gasoline is a big byproduct. Styrene and styrofoam and plastics are usually one of the bigger ones. And so, we already know that is a, strong possibility. It's been proven in lots of different studies. So let's, focus on maybe other things to test. And so, then people also, they've got to move. We have 800 muscles. We don't move because everything is sit down. You have to incorporate every kind of movement you can, walking stairs, washing dishes, clothes, and all the things that people really don't like, but they have to look at it from the positive side of the movement. And we need to move, we need to get sunlight. Sunlight's been villainized, and sunlight's important. It keeps us, that keeps us alive. And then we have to get our sleep and honor our circadian rhythm of 10 to 6, give or take, 30 minutes. And so, and probably one of the biggest things we need to, that's been incorporated in the last probably 50, 60 years is technology.
Yeah.
And so I was really in the last 30 years or so, it's really exponentially grown.
Yeah.
And so that is something that everybody is, it's a necessity, because it's a necessity for you and I to talk right now.
Yeah.
But then how do we counterbalance, the negative aspects of technology, right?
Yeah.
So that's, that's something that I'm a pet peeve about, because it's something I
Yes.
started doing 15 years ago, because my daughter did her 8th grade science experiment on how electromagnetic fields affect a living substance. And so it's real. I know people
Yes.
really don't.
They don't want to believe it. They get angry whenever you talk about it. I get so many people get mad at me when I talk about it, but
Yeah,
I
but
want to hear from a doctor who treats cancer about why
well,
we really need to care.
right. Well, there's many scientists all over the world, not just US. We need to use the world as our source of information. And we know that EMFs, there's been, many, many, many different studies. So I tell people, err on the side of caution. In Berkeley, they have 2016, they had the necessity to inform that your cell phone was carcinogenic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a scientist, Anthony Miller, who's done lots of research in science, and says that, it's going, it's a 2A or a 2B carcinogen, but a lot of people say it's a class 1, which is in the range of smoking and asbestos. So even if it's 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
we know it's a potential carcinogen, so we need to all err on the side of caution. And so we know that if you wear your cell phone in your pocket, that, in sperm count goes down, infertility increases. Now I was just listening to a doctor lecture on increase in colorectal cancers, having in their pocket, because, young people, wear, it's an appendage.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
it is.
so, and they're addicted, but you should really, with your children, not have them use technology.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the children's nervous systems are not fully developed till they're probably 18. So we need to be precautionary. I know with my own children, we did not use lots of technology, and not until they were driving did I allow them to use a phone. And it was not something like constantly or incessantly.
Right. Right.
And then you can buy those cases. You can create a little Faraday cage now.
Yep. The Defender case. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I like the real Faraday one. That
like a bag. Yeah.
Got a little bag. It's a little sleeve. It's not that big a deal. It's not that big, but anybody who needs to carry their cell phone, that's how they should carry it, or put it on airplane mode all the time.
Yeah.
Never use cell phone to your ear. I reflect upon this because now I didn't grow up with any cell phone or any technology, any electrical technology. Great. Right. We had corded phones, and that's the only thing we had. And so I don't even remember having a microwave. I personally don't even have a microwave in my house.
Yeah,
now.
We don't use one. Definitely don't use one.
Yeah. So I think people need to not deny this information, like the stories I said in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we know that we're electrical beings that have electrons and protons. So dirty electricity, which is any electricity that's man-made, whether it's TV, whether it's microwave, whether it's cell tower, all this, cell phone, et cetera, affects the energetic potential of our systems. And we know that EMFs, cause DNA damage. We know that it affects your melatonin production. We know that it also affects the calcium channel system in our body. So we know these things. And so we need to counterbalance it. The best way to counterbalance is immerse yourself in nature. Okay. There's actually a treatment called forest bathing, and you just go and immerse yourself in nature, and you walk barefoot, or you walk barefoot on the ocean in the sand if you're close to the ocean, Are you immerse yourself in the trees? Earth, I heard a doctor friend of mine talk about putting a copper pole in the earth and actually,
Yes.
grabbing that. So there's all kind of things. Unfortunately, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a new thing that you have to, like all these new things that you have to do. But I
Yeah.
tell people there is, not enough time, there's not enough research, there's not enough money to even to clean all this up. Okay.
Right.
When you
Right.
think about, when you just think about pollution alone, so try to get all the countries in the world to agree on something. Well, that's never going to happen. Okay. So we can talk about all the pollution here in the United States and all of the things, but the bottom line is the pollution that's going on in China and India and Africa. Okay. Well, they've got to agree the same kind of, efforts that we are. So, us going green is, I think we need to teach people self-care, how to manage that, I think. And one of the best people that I follow is a guy, he wrote the book Invisible Rainbow. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book. I love him. I love him because he really gives, actual information. I tell my patients to sign up for his newsletter. It is a little daunting, I will warn people, but I love the passion that he has to inform people about EMFs. And in the Invisible Rainbow, he chronicles electricity, which has been around for about 100, a little over 100 years, with disease. And so we have to listen to it, and we've got to do whatever we can do to take care of ourselves. It's just one other dimension, because we have all this unchecked, imbalanced inventions, creations, everything that no one said, oh, what does this do to humanity? Right. And we should be saying, what is it doing? Okay. And then it's the collective potential of all of this. So we need to just do everything to educate people, educate our fellow man, empower them, and come up with reasonable solutions that people can live, which you can. It's just not that difficult. I know, because I do it in my own life.
Yeah. And honestly, something I've been sharing about recently is that I was trying to get pregnant for a long time, and I was working with a doctor, and she told me, AirPods are not hurting you. Your Wi-Fi is not hurting you. Your cell phone's not hurting you. That's stupid. And until I eliminated the AirPods, until I got the kill switch, until I got, rid of all these things, started mitigating my environment, there was no pregnancy. I couldn't get pregnant. Once I eliminated those things, right, changed my lifestyle, and it did take some effort, but now it's just kind of like second nature, right?
Right.
Then it made a huge difference in my fertility, and so anyone who kind of brushes these things off, brushes them to the side, and says it does not affect our health, I feel that they really are not in touch with what science. There is actually science out there that shows how it negatively affects our health, as you said. And I do think it is contributing to cancer rates as well. Infertility, cancer, all these things are metabolic issues, and they're health issues that a lot of people are dealing with on a daily basis.
Right. Well, and when you add up all the different negative influences, that's what it is. I tell people it's never one thing. It's many things that are influencing the masterful miracle that you get to live in every day, but you got to work at keeping it a miracle.
Right. Yeah. It's one thing at a time. For me, I'd been eating from a local farm, and I understand the food thing. I had been doing that for years before I started, but then it was like, okay, well, that's not enough. I have to eliminate all the personal care products and the plastics and those. Okay. And then I had to go that step further and start mitigating the EMF, and so you're right. It's not just the one thing. I don't think there's like a magic bullet. I think we have to look at our, like you said, your life. How do you live? That's one thing that it sounds like you discuss with your patients is let's talk about a 24-hour day for you. Like, what does that look like? Am I right in that?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
When I have a cancer patient, I ask them, obviously I get into what's going on and how to chemo. I always like to know how things come about, because you learn a lot about what's going on with the patient just by understanding how this occurred. And then they're usually always scared because the doctor says, oh no, we got to do this immediately right now. And it doesn't allow the patient to digest and process and say, okay, because the cancer started about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it didn't just happen today. You just didn't wake up with
Yeah.
cancer. So patients are very, very overwhelmed and daunted just by their diagnosis. So they don't even have time to kind of process it. So I help them, so they come to me because they don't want to be scared and they want to understand everything. And so anyway, I ask them, okay, so tell me about your sleep, tell me about water, tell me about eating, tell me how much you move, tell me about what's your stress been for the last 10 years. And then you get understanding. And then we slowly, I always tell patients it takes about a year from the time that you come to see me to learn how to revolutionize your life. Okay. And learn, this is a lot to learn. You can't just like be told. The patient needs to take, charge and say, look, I need to educate myself. So I give them proper direction. Plus we have a cancer conversation every other Wednesday. People get on Zoom and they're able to learn in bites. And then we repeat the information so they understand. And that has really, really helped patients they like, oh, and then if it's not one conversation, the next, maybe it's the 10th one, they go, oh, now I see and understand. So that has really helped people understand. I tell people any disease process, whether it's dementia, whether it's cancer, whether it's blood pressure issues, sugar issues, it's not just pop a pill and everything's fine. It's the why, where, when, and how this disease process started and unraveling that process. You can't change the condition of a patient until you address the terrain and the unwell garden that the disease came in. And so this is, medicine is very reactive. And no, this is the way we do it. And this is how we do it. And this is what the books say. Okay, that's all well and good when it's an emergency, but how do we take care of chronic conditions? How do we make the patient better from the time they come in till the next time we see them? How did we make them better? And so whatever the condition, because I treat everything from human optimization to stage 4 cancer, because the approach is similar. Then there's very specific direct things that I would do with a dementia patient as opposed to a cancer patient. But there is some commonality, right? Like we're all humans. We have head, 2 eyes, nose, heart, liver, lung, blah, blah, blah. But what are the influencers in each patient? What are the predispositions? What is the DNA, maybe weaknesses that we need to address and so forth? And so, medicine is, what surgery do you need? What drug do you need? Now, you might need surgery, okay? You might need medicine as a bridge to get you to the other side, okay? Like when I have patients that come in with cancer, I go, you may need the chemotherapy to shrink the tumor burden. We can do low dose fractionated chemo. We can do regular dose. We'll decide together. You might need surgery to, remove the lump once everything has shrunk. But that's a bridge to get to your new transformed healing place, right? And so patients like to hear that, like I had a young lady that came in from Texas, and she's 34 with rectal cancer. And I think she told me, oh, we can just get rid of this with, natural medicine. And I said, no, you've really got to do the chemo. But what I'm going to tell you to do so you can handle chemo, so you can be correcting things, because chemotherapy affects every single organ and system in the body. but here's what you're going to do to preserve yourself and take care of yourself and keep yourself vital while you go through the process. And that's going to get us to, like I said, the other side when you have a CT scan with hopeful evidence of no evidence of disease on the scan. And then, the work continues. So, people, you can't just people can't think just a surgery and a chemo and a radiation is what is going to get rid of the disease. We have to change the 10-year condition of the body in all levels. And that takes, 1 to 2 years, depending on what the landscape of the patient is to begin with. And so that's why prevention, early detection for all diseases is paramount in our medical paradigm. It's changing, but it's changing too slowly. We're like about 20 years behind. Now, I know there are practitioners doing this. There's health coaches doing it. You're doing it in your way. But, and that's becoming now more, accepted. I mean, Cleveland Clinic has, one of the largest, hospital systems. I mean, I think they have 100,000 employees. They have a whole preventive wellness situation there. There's many other universities integrating integrative medicine into their program. But we're, like I said, we're about 20 years behind. So everything is possible. We just got to keep pushing this information out. We need to educate people. We need to inform people. And like you said, people are skeptical or denial because they go to their doctor, like my patients tell me all the time.
Yeah.
That the doctor says, oh, what you eat doesn't matter, just drink milkshakes, whatever you want to eat. And you're like, now that cannot be. There is no book on food that says go eat Oreo cookies and milkshakes. Okay.
Right.
I said, there is no book. I don't care if the book is healthy or not. No book talks like that. So find me the book and I want to see it. Okay. But there's no book on food and how to cook and everything that says that. So we can't, and that's what's bothersome to the patient. It's like, they're like, how can this be? We're living in 2022. I mean,
right.
This information is written in just magazines written everywhere, right? And so this information is there. And so we need to, listen to the patient and the doctor. Like, I was interviewing a doctor to come and join me. And she said her husband is on the, works in conventional medicine. And, he's like, he knows differently, but he's stuck in the system. Well, that's not good, right? When if you have the privilege to know, we have a duty to inform, right?
Yes.
But the medical system, the way it's set up now, you have 5-7 minutes. How are you going to talk to people? Because you got to just do the, the standard of care and filling in, right? Filling in the electronic medical record, which is what they want now. And so they don't have time, the energy, the stamina to do it.
Yeah, exactly. They really don't.
And so, but, people now, you can do this in group classes to save and conserve money. People can take charge by listening to there's so many summits and health and podcasts on this information. And if many people are saying the same thing, there probably is a little validity to it.
Exactly.
And so anyway, it's going to change because we have too many sick people. That's the problem. I tell people, US ranks 43rd in the world in healthcare. We spend 2.5 times more than any other country in the world. And there's 10 prescriptions written per man, woman, and child. And the health of humanity is not good overall. All right. Very few people are healthy today. And so we have to be saying, how can this be okay? How can this be? How can this be? How can we just look the other way and say it's not happening? How do we do that? We cannot do that. We are not respecting our fellow man when we do that. And so I'm doing it my way. You're doing it. There are many people trying to do this and help people. So there's very good things going on too.
I agree. Well, I know that you have a busy day of patients ahead of you, but I wanted to ask you one more little question before we wrap. For my viewers, what are some screening tests? Because you've been talking about how cancer is this kind of 10-year process. What are some things that someone would want to maybe go out today if they were worried about their health that could maybe clue them in? Maybe cancer is something that's in my future, or metabolic issues are in my future. What kind of tests would you recommend that they get?
All right. So a couple of things. I talk about all this in my book, Cancer Revolution, so people can use that as the broad scope of information. The cancer conversation, like I said, every other Wednesday. And if you miss it, we send it out for you to listen to. So, because we iterate things all the time, but I will give you an example of a patient that just came to see me. She's 37 years old, and she heard about me somewhere. She doesn't live here. She lives in another state. She ordered a blood test called the cancer profile. And the cancer profile is measuring quantitative HCG, PHI, which is the enzyme of low oxygen in your body, DHEA sulfate, which is the hormone of stress, immune, and longevity, your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone to see if your thyroid's low, CEA, which is the marker for a non-specific marker for many cancers, and GGT, which is the most specific enzyme for your liver. So that tells you, okay, maybe something going on. Well, interestingly enough, she did that test, and then she ordered, because she's 37, she ordered her own thermogram, the thermogram, which is a thermography of her breast. And she got that, and there was something a little abnormal. She went to her doctor, and they ordered imaging, including an MRI. And they said, we don't really know, doesn't show, let's just repeat it in 6 months. Well, she came to see me, and then I ordered the rest of the tests she need, which would be C-reactive protein. It's a non-specific marker for inflammation. Doctors do not do it because there's not a medication. So CRP is the red light on your dashboard that says fire in the body. We've got to do something. So CRP should be less than 1, about 0.5. I have patients do a hemoglobin A1C, which is a reflection of your sugar over 90 days. It's also a reflection of aging. They call it glycation, which is misfolding of protein. So I call it the internal wrinkles of the body. And then vitamin D would be very, very helpful. So those 3 can be done by any lab easily. They're very inexpensive to do, and they tell you a lot. Now, a lot of times I always add DHEA sulfate to all of my patients. But again, these are very easy tests to do. Now, the other test that I like to do that I've been doing for about 23 years is called the acupuncture meridian assessment. You have acupuncture points in your fingers and toes that correspond to every organ in your body. Energy precedes action. So before you get diagnosed, a lot of things took place, right? So that energetic imbalances tells me, okay, this is what we need to work on. The blood test does not tell me, a scan does not tell me that. So energy is, frequency medicine, energy medicine is becoming, it's not new, but the validity and use of it is coming more into play. So again, you cannot use one thing to figure out everything, right? So you use, and these are not expensive tests. Now, the other test that is very beneficial is called the liquid biopsy. It's done by a lab called RGCC, which is in Greece and Switzerland. And it tells us if you have circulating tumor cell. The accuracy is about 85–86%. And so that will tell us if circulating tumor cells are around in your body. So those are, for some people, some science says that's the initiator for cancer. So I always tell people circulating tumor cells are responsible for 95% of metastasis. So you'd want to know that anyway, no matter if you have cancer or you don't have cancer. So it tells you, like, it shows renal, sarcoma, melanoma, breast, and prostate. And then it will tell me the type of cell it is, and I will use the best guesstimate of where it's related. Now, there's a new blood test called Gallery, but the Gallery test is what I find it's helpful once you have been diagnosed, and it's something you can follow. So I find that the RGCC so far, I have no affiliation with the lab, is probably the best lab that I've used worldwide. Okay. And so, because I like to use all these tests to see, the validity in what I'm getting, because my job is to get the best information for the patient. Yeah. And so these are things that can be done really very economically, and it will change, it will change the course of your life. And I always tell people an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I mean, I know human nature is, I'm okay. I don't want to know. There's nothing wrong with me. I feel great. Well, all my cancer patients pretty much felt fine the day before they were diagnosed with cancer. Wow. So, because I always talk to them, how did this come about? Did you find a lump? Did you this? But I always tell people a lot of patients felt great. I had a young lady that last night, she is from Idaho, 36 years old, 3 children, runs a very good life. I mean, her health life is unbelievable. Okay. So I'm so impressed with how she lives and how she takes care of her kids and everything. And I'm like, wow, how did this happen? And since the beginning of the year, I have seen an unbelievable increase in young people coming to see me. When I say young, 25 to 40. So I'm like, wait, what is going on? We don't see statistics till later. I'm in the trenches 5 days a week. So I see what I'm seeing. And I've been doing this for 36 years. So I'm like, oh, whoa, what is going on that there's an outrageous increase in young people coming to see me? So, again, I want people to know what I know, number one. Number two, I want people to know that they need to be focused on self-care. Self-care is the new healthcare. And then go and partner with an integrative functional person who knows and can figure out and verify. Don't be guessing with your health. Test and absolutely know.
I love it. Well, I am just so grateful for you coming on and talking with my audience and myself today. This has just been so much helpful, wonderful, practical information. Where could people find you if they wanted to work with you or just follow your work?
Right. Well, the best place is on Instagram, because that's the daily feeding of information and reinforcement. We all need reinforcement, right? So Instagram, Connealy MD, and then they can go to Cancer Center for Healing and sign up for the Cancer Conversation, because they're going to get the latest, greatest information on anything and everything. Obviously, we don't present everything in every conversation because we need to highlight a topic. But I know from my patients, they are loving it and they send it to their friends and family to listen to, because we talk about the nitty-gritty of the body, not just cancer, but any disease process. Because any disease process, we've got to look at the entire panoramic view of a human. And and then they can read the book Cancer Revolution on Audible or read it. And then just stay in communication with us. So
wonderful. Well, I'm going to make sure I link all that information in the show notes below as well, so they'll access it very easily. And thank you again for coming and talking with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I love to be a part of your journey.
Oh, wonderful.